Mr. Frampton, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We've been getting a lot of messages about our weekly gathering here about AI and recruitment. Have you been reading some of them?
It's actually cool to see that people are finding what we're talking about useful, which is really, really rewarding.
Yep, I agree. I've had a lot of people say, hey, like you keep talking about like your customers at Quil and you're hearing about this from them, that from them. So I thought today we'd kind of change it up a little bit and kind of bring to light a little bit around like what we're doing at Quil, like the main areas that like we're focused on
Yeah.
solving. um, as like a little bit of a change up to the weekly episodes.
When teams are thinking about using AI, there's always two components you can think of, right? There's front of office work and back of office work. And so if you're thinking about, Josh, what the heck does that even mean? If you're thinking like front of office work, I would think anything customer facing. So like copy and emails, maybe that's like outreach strategies that you're doing, but mainly like how AI can help create messaging for you. And we know that we've heard mixed reviews on those type of AI functionalities where I could tell it's AI, it has that flavor to it, whether it's true or not. The other side to it is back of house work. And I really think this is a really interesting area that I'm a big and very biasedly big believer in for AI, because it's finding different ways that it can automate manual tasks a lot of times. And that's obviously a really big thing that we're helping to focus on here at Quil. And so the three main things that we really help with today are obviously automating admin work in general. So that's going to be like note taking on calls, ATS updates after that call, to even things like helping to create write-ups for teams. Because from conversations that I'm having with recruiters on a daily basis, I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing is that they're spending anywhere from like 30 to 50% of their time doing admin work right now. And I know that was even something that we saw similarly more on like a B2B sales side of things, but obviously from a recruiting side of things, there's even more at stake, because you're only as good as the last placement you made. And it only matters that you can find another placement to make in the future. And so when you're thinking about how competitive that market can be, if two recruiters have the same candidate, whoever sends it in first is the one who gets the placement. That's wild. When they're thinking about ATS updates, depending on the level of detail the firm is really looking to track about those candidates, I've heard like 2 to 5 minutes per call to update your ATS records after a conversation, just so you have a good, strong database of candidates you've spoken to. The other side of it, which is more so of a functionality for like actual recruiters who are making these offers at the end, is actually doing write-ups after calls. So maybe that's like a write-up after an intake call if you're more on the business development side of things, or kicking off a new search for a client you're working with, or when you actually have that great candidate that you're looking to send over to the hiring manager, spending the time to actually create that submittal of that write-up as well. And I've heard like a submittal, depending on the seniority of a role, can be 20 minutes all the way up to some teams in executive search an hour and a half sometimes. So these are obviously incredibly time-consuming tasks where that's how you get paid at the end for that write-up, or for a job description, maybe after an intake call, it's how you know how to find the right person. So there's obviously a lot of very relevant details that we need to make sure that we're tracking there. And those little 2 to 5 minute repetitive tasks tend to be the first thing recruiters kind of put to the side, especially when they're not one of those final candidates that they're looking to work with.
And take literal shortcuts. I think that's one of the things that seem, oh, that's such a good idea. I'm going to put RFL rather than reason for leaving. But when you're looking at searching your candidate database going forward, those shortcuts really tend to screw you in the long
Yeah,
run.
you're taking your chicken scratch from whatever resource that you were trying to write your notes on and get it back into a system, just so you make sure that your managing director doesn't say, hey, Ryan, make sure you're actually getting this in within our SLA as well. And so there's obviously a couple of really cool ways that we're doing that here at Quil. But to your point, I thought it could be cool to do a little bit of showing and telling. So not only like what an end result can be, but actually how some of this stuff works.
Yeah, I'd love for you to dive in.
I love it. Well, the really cool thing with Quil is no matter how you're trying to speak to a candidate today, right? If that's a phone call, a video call, or even in-person meetings, we can be there to make sure that you have your notes taken. All you need to do is make sure obviously Quil's a part of that call, right? We have a bot that can join those video calls. You can call using Quil even directly from your ATS, but then you just need to hang up. Super cool, right? Hang up your phone, everything else is done. So right when you're done that call, you'll not only get something like a transcript of the conversation, just so you can track the full back and forth that you're having with the candidate there themselves. We even provide a recording of that call. So if you ever want to listen back to the game tape, or maybe even for coaching purposes for different members in the team, it's a really easy way to do so inside of the product. But the really cool thing that we can start to do is take any like templates or formats of how you're doing things today, like the questions you're asking on an interview or a screening call, and input those into Quil so we can actually automate how those notes are being taken. So just for an example, if we're on like an interview or a screening call, some common things I hear recruiters say that they're trying to track are things like the previous companies that candidates worked for, what their day-to-day responsibilities were through those different roles, or even any notable accomplishments that participant might have had throughout those different time periods. Things like the reason for leaving those roles in the past, to even something as simple as like, what does their ideal next role actually look like, or their compensation expectations, right? And just easily tracking and categorizing that information. I think the one big thing I hear all the time, Ryan, is people are like, do I have to worry about saying these in a certain order, or do I have to say like a magic keyword to make sure that Quil actually can understand what that's saying? Thankfully, no, because honestly, that would just suck. So the way that we have it set up, I'll give you a sneak peek to the back end here, is that there's a different categories inside of Quil that we can help make sure that you're keeping track of, right? So maybe that's things like your companies that they work for, day-to-day responsibilities, or even adding any category that you'd want to track there. But for each category, basically the question that you're trying to ask, we just create an individualized prompt for it. So if we're looking at the companies they work for, we just ask Quil's AI to say, only provide information in this section for the information that was provided on the companies they worked for, versus for the reason for leaving, what was the participant's reason for leaving those roles? And you can easily add categories to this, change the order of the questions depending on how you want your notes formatted. But because we have those individualized prompts created, it doesn't matter if you ask us at the start of the call, the end of the call, you say, Ryan, what would you want for the next job you're looking for? Even though it's different than what the text said here, it's thankfully smart enough that it can actually pick up and categorize that information for you, right? And so you can make sure that you have like a template or a format pre-created before, even a script for yourself, to make sure that you know all those talking points that you're going to hit. So when you're on a call, you can not only have all your notes ready for you, you can still take any manual notes that you would like, because maybe you're like me and you really need that to help stay present and pay a lot of attention on calls too, or remember things that you want to touch back on. And when you're done, all you got to do is press end meeting. Super simple, right? Or hang up the phone or end whatever call that you're on, and you'll have all your notes created for you, and even any write-ups that you're looking to create after. And I think the really cool part with this is it can help create any of these first drafts you write after that call. So instead of taking 20 minutes at the end of your day just to format all your notes out, we can actually create a template for you inside of the back end of Quil, and just use these personalized points with these brackets to help communicate with the AI what you want in certain sections that you're formatting. So as an example, here under the work experience, we're saying summarize the participant's work experience in point form. And then at the end, we say, what is the participant's compensation expectations? So when you're done your call, you can just go into the back end of Quil, hit the details card for the specific call that you're looking for, and your write-up's already created that first draft for you. So we have the participant's work experience now listed in point form, ooh la la, and we even have the compensation expectations listed out for you too. And so now all you need to do is put your finishing touches on it. Make sure that it's in your writing style, it's relevant to the role you're looking to fill, to the hiring manager's personal preferences. And then whenever you're ready, you just need to copy the text and maybe put an email if that's how you typically do it. We can just download it as a text file or a PDF. But I think the coolest things that we're hearing is that a lot of the team members who are, or customers, I should say, that are actually using these functionalities are finding that 20-minute to an hour-long process is cut down by like 90%. So say it takes you 20 minutes to create a submittal after call, it might take you 3 to do your finishing touches on it. If it takes you an hour to do these, you can probably get that done in about 5 to 10 minutes. So drastically accelerating your time to fill to actually get these orders out so you can start placing these roles faster. Now that's obviously the big benefit for the recruiter themselves, but if we look at it from a firm's angle as well, you're not only just getting your notes back inside of another random product that you're not going to have access to, we can automatically push these back into your team's ATS. So there's a huge variety of different ATSs that we work with today, and we know it's just an ever expanding list inside of the product. So I think to date we have 27 different ATSs, 28 different ATSs that we're working with. And so right when you're done your call, all your notes and the categories that you want selected will get automatically pushed back into your candidate's profile record. So inside of some systems, they'll have like a note category that we can push them automatically to. Some systems, depending on their preferences, one is like an activity timeline. So inside of something like a top echelon here, just because I had it up for my last call, you'll actually be able to see all those notes automatically getting pushed back to your activity feed. So we can see all those categories and headers that we wanted to make sure that we were keeping track of automatically populating back in. So we can actually search for this information now, right? Because with the amount of times that we look for like candidate matching or searching for similar candidate profiles, to your point at the start of the call, but Ryan likes using RFL and Josh says reason for leaving and Susie says something totally different. So every time I'm trying to search for it, I just can't find any information. Now that we can actually standardize how information is getting inputted back into your system, we can actually use these ATSs for their full functionality because we have not only the notes inputted back in, but for most of these, we can even start doing things like updating their fields. The other thing I hear all the time is, Ryan, no matter how many times that I try to get my team to update their compensation field, it never happens. So whenever I try to make searches for somebody who's a developer role within $100,000 salary base, I don't get the people that I need, or it's 187 people that I need to start filtering down. So now we can actually start doing things like updating even some of these fields that you're trying to track today. And all you had to do was hang up the phone.
Yeah, I think when I talk to customers, a lot of them are thinking about, hey, like I need to increase the earnings and the profit of my recruitment business. And a lot of them have historically just tried to increase the amount of placements that they're able to achieve in a given year. And that's the sole focus. We know with times like this, with the market conditions, that's easier said than done. So I think driving efficiencies in your back office is that way that you can increase revenue without needing to add more recruiters or add more staff, specifically in the back office, that are eating up some of that profit that you can be having, and using AI to kind of augment that and further scale out your team without needing to hire additional folks necessarily at the same rate that you once did.
The biggest goal of AI is how can we make it 30% more efficient, right? If you can have the exact same team, not adding any headcount, but see an increase of profits by 30% or increase of productivity by 30%, what does that mean to your bottom line? How is that impacting the margins of your business as well? Because we also know for most teams, when they have a new role they're looking to fill, where's the first place they go? They go LinkedIn Recruiter, a job board, or they start asking for references. Teams don't use their database they're using to track candidates with to find candidates. And I know a lot of that's just because of manual inputs of data as well, which we're not always trusting. So we don't get the full functionality out of them. But I'm like, I see the price tags of some of these ATSs. I've seen what CRMs cost selling them in my previous life here too. Might as well make sure we get the best bang for our buck out of those systems that we're already investing so much resources and capital, not only to set up, but maintain as well as we're using them.
Yeah, because even outside of like the back office costs that can balloon, LinkedIn Recruiter costs, I think we all know what that's like. It is super expensive. So if you're completely reliant, or even half of your income is reliant off of using LinkedIn Recruiter, there's a massive upside that you could see by just optimizing your current candidate database so that you don't need to spend $60K, $30K per year.
My favorite quote from one of the clients that I met with earlier this week, and I don't know if I told you this one yet, Ryan, so we'll see if you love it or not, but he said, I would never have thought Quil was a need to have tool until I used it. Now that I have, I can never go back. And I thought that was very interesting because there's a lot of teams out there that they're so used to doing things the way they've always done it. I mean, you don't know a car is a much easier way to get down to the big city versus taking your horse until you had a car.
I've heard some of our clients talk about that in less politically correct ways. So I'm not going to share their exact quotes on what they said, but I know exactly what you mean. We even have one customer, they do $1 million of placement revenue per year. Guess how many people they have on their team?
I don't even know. Three, four?
0. It's just them.
Yeah, that's sick.
And they just use tools like Quil and etc. to drive efficiencies with their business, and they're really having it as more of like a lifestyle business. They want to enjoy time with their family. They want to not have work be like the only thing that they need to do. Obviously, they're really good at what they do, or else they wouldn't have been able to achieve that type of income. But man, like there's so many efficiencies that you can drive to make yourself more profitable. So yeah, for all the people that were asking, you guys talk about your customers all the time. What the hell do you do? That's what Quil does. And there's a lot more to come in the future. So thanks for tuning in to this week of AI and recruitment, and we'll see you next week.